Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise. It is this Friday morning. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Can't believe it's Friday already. Good morning. It was just 2 days ago we had Workers' Day. Well, just let the party be, let the celebrations begin, petrol or not. Got to let your hair down. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Akwa, you talk like you weren't expecting it to be Friday already. Well, it was 2 days ago, it was May Day, but today is World Press Freedom Day, May Street. Good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Okay, so, the weather, not too bad, 28 degrees centigrade. So you're going to dash where you want to go, depending on what part of the country you are in. But here in Abuja, not too bad. Humidity, of course, you'll get a lot hotter later in the day, but at the moment, it's 75%. So that's a business area where lots of activities go on. So, Central Business District, you call it.
Central Business District housing home to many iconic buildings here in the Federal Capital Territory. I'm trying to see if I can see any. Yes, you can see the NNPC towers undergoing renovation right there. You can see
know where they are.
Yes, two of the towers have been cladded, wearing a new look. Two are still in their old state. If you can look just on the right side of the screen, you see that there, just in case you're wondering. I'm wondering I can't remember what that building is. Is that in MBS or so? Or is it, I can't remember. Let me not be saying what I don't know. But those four towers, that is the NNPC towers. And I'm sure people are still looking to them to give an explanation of what's going on with petrol. Will we have any this weekend? Because they had given us the assurance that by the end of this business week, we should be getting, everywhere should be flooded, wet, as they like to use the term.
Talk is cheap,
with petrol.
You know what they say about talk.
But, but thank God, the weather is kind. I mean, the weather has been clement, even though I still say that it's behaving like the politicians, with plenty of promise to rain, but none anywhere to be seen. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, at least the sun isn't coming out in all of its forcefulness. It's going to do so on this program today, though. So, especially when we're talking World Press Freedom Day. Ayo, what's it like where you are at?
Well, the sky is still what it is. I just love the view that I'm seeing right here. You know, Mark, I always look forward to this particular part of our program. The skyline is just, as you said, clement, just as it is. But, this morning, later on, I don't know if the business environment is going to be as clement as the weather is today. In Lagos, the weather is, quite something in the region of 29 degrees, feeling like 36. What it's going to be like the rest of the day, I guess we'll wait to see. But business headlines will tell us what the business environment is feeling like. Hot, cold, warm, bearish or bullish, we're going to find out. But the business news today at 10 o'clock will be focusing on leveraging comparative advantage for food security. After food and shelter, then we can talk about anything else. But that's the outlook this morning.
Okay, yes, indeed. Thanks, guys. So on this occasion of the World Press Freedom Day, the Ministers of Information and his environment counterpart will be holding a presser later today. They'll be talking about some of the issues as it relates to the environment and press freedom. I think press freedom issues will never actually go away. And sometimes press freedom matters across the globe differ. The current challenges they face differ. So I guess it's understandable when they try to focus on the environment. And who knows? I mean, aside from the environment with which we operate too is part of the considerations that we will also examine here today on the program.
I can never forget that map in social studies. And in GSS 1, I learned where you find that, that circle, man is environment and technology and the relationship that they share. Maybe we already preempted that by bringing you a bit of that on our morning brief program. I hope you caught it, where our environment correspondent and head of programs, Ayola Kasim, was talking about environment issues on World Press Freedom Day. You might be very interested to know what the link is. If you missed it, you can go back online and say it out. But maybe that's what we're thinking of, that joint press briefing, Chamberlain. It was certainly something very interesting to see why the Minister of Information and the Minister of Environment are jointly briefing on this day. Ayo.
Well, perhaps it's also not unconnected with the theme of the World Press Freedom Day today. The World Press Freedom Day has its focus this year on a press for the planet. And I think that may not be, that may be the connection that we are finding right there. And perhaps also to underscore the fact that generally many people don't know, and I think we've talked about it quite a number of times on this program, many people don't really understand when we talk about climate change, talk about the environment, many people don't really understand. We can't even connect it. Many wetlands have become dry lands. Many fudges, areas where you can just plant this thing or plant that thing here, they become concrete. I remember growing up, and where I'm pretty sure you can identify as well, maybe also Chamberlain. My mom would just wash the pepper and pour the water in a particular area in the house, in the compound, that is not tarred. And a few weeks, days, weeks after, we are plucking tomatoes and all of those things. I don't know where you will find those things in any city, especially built-up areas anymore. But that is what we have now. Maybe that is part of the conversation. And it is very, very important, really, because there are some animals in the animal species that are going extinct simply because we are not giving enough attention to the environment, to the planet. And that, perhaps, is what this whole conversation is about.
All right, so let's take you through some of the dailies this morning. All right, let's go ahead and take you through some of the papers this morning. We'll start with New Telegraph. Governors disagree with FG on new minimum wage is a big lead on the front page here today. Say consultations still ongoing. Our demand for 615,000 naira based on current basic cost of living ascribed to NLC. So that is point blank right there. Kaduna bombing, military to court-martial 2 personnel. That's what you see at the bottom strip of that lead story here today. But it is a lead story for this Nigeria. Kaduna airstrike mishap. 2 officers to face court-martial, says military. Troops kill 715 terrorists to rescue 465 kidnapped victims in April, ascribed to DHQ. So, yeah. So that's what you see right there. Although, look at this, Rivers politics. Magnus Abe returns to APC, discloses reconciliation with Wike. So that also tucked in right there. And then moving on to some other papers that focus also on this minimum wage matter. Vanguard, for instance, minimum wage governors working on what is payable. This is ascribed to Nigeria Governors Forum. Says 37-member tripartite committee still consulting, assures of looking into remuneration of state judicial officers, infrastructure of courts, labor, justifies 615,000 naira minimum wage demand, gives breakdown, counters government on May 1 commencement date for new minimum wage. So quite a handful of riders on the front page there. But in the meantime, just above this lead story, NSA orders enforcement of cybercrime law, meaning that lots of people should expect some activity thereafter, probably, who knows. But beneath this lead story, petrol scarcity, long queues linger despite FG's assurances. Oh dear. Okay, so Daily Independent, new minimum wage, we are reviewing wage states can pay, ascribed to governors right there on the front page. Okay, have a look at Daily Trust. Repentant Boko Haram members invade police station in Borno. Yeah, I know. Raises eyebrow, doesn't it? Attack immigration, NDLA checkpoints. We repel them, ascribed to the police. No comment for now. Borno government. It calls for review of deradicalization program. Experts. this will definitely get a lot of tongues wagging beyond the eyebrows now. Huge concerns it will raise, I tell you. Let's have a look at The Guardian. Well, this is different. Nigeria Unprofessional Football League is the theme here. How dodgy officiating, complicit club officials, supporters ruin games. So they're focusing on sports, on the local scene, how I think it's important to get it right. So from Guardian to Blueprint, Shetima, a second Chronicle roundtable. With reforms, Tinubu saved Nigeria from imminent death. Assures economy will witness positive changes after sacrifices. And then you see this. President should sack non-performing ministers, ex-minister Shamsuddin. So that's what you find on the front page there. And then Nigerian News Direct, NDIC increases deposit insurance coverage for financial institutions. That's what you see right there. Daily Times, Nigeria's economy to experience significant growth soon. Implores Nigerians to be patient with President Tinubu's administration. Yeah, you see that. And then Leadership Friday, 2 years after, police arrest mastermind of Kaduna train attack. Police kill 715 terrorists, arrest 280, rescue 623 hostages, 2 for court-martial over Tudunbiri aero bombing. All of that on the front page here. Then the Nigerian Observer leads with concerns over road conditions as rainy season sets in. So one of those times again, I tell you, the cycle, who knows. These are some of the papers, guys.
Well, I'll begin with my take on the papers this morning with the Vanguard newspaper, which talks about minimum wage, governors working on what is payable. That's according to the Nigerian Governors Forum. Of course, much has been said about the position of labor, talking about 615,000 naira wage demand. And the breakdown, of course, was given in our conversation with the president of the NLC yesterday. Well, you know, what I consider important at the end of the day in all of this conversation is how we are communicating these things. On the one hand, we heard on the celebration of the Workers' Day when the Vice President was speaking, and a number of other information that has been put out by the Office of the President, saying that the days of worrying about pay for the labor movement are over. So on the one hand, and this issue has been raised again and again, there are workers in the federal government, there are workers in states, and there are workers in local government areas. So what kind of conversation are we having with the people to ensure that we carry them along in the first place? I think that that conversation needs to be had. So we are having conversations with the federal government, and whatever position is held by the federal government is what is going to subsist down the ladder, even to the lowest local government. I listened to someone talking, and I think this point has also been made quite a number of times. When the federal government, when the minimum wage was officially 18,000 naira, not all states could pay. Before it became 18,000 naira, not all states could pay. Now it is 30,000 naira, not all states are able to pay. How many states will be able to pay when it increases? What are we doing to ensure not just that the states get due allocation to help them meet this obligation that is definitely coming, but to also ensure that the states themselves are productive and that the workers who are getting this increment in their pay, they are also as productive? Is that conversation part of what is going on among the governors? Is labor talking with the governments at the various state levels? Are the governors also having this conversation with their states, the workers in their states, so that the realities are not unknown to the people that are going to be working with the state government to ensure that the goals, the aspirations, the objectives of the state government are met, and the local government as well? Those conversations need to be holistic and need to be consummate, because this is going to be quite a very tedious one. Some states can't pay now. Why? Will those states now who are not unable to pay 30,000 naira be able to pay when that time comes? I guess we'll wait to see, but that's my take this morning, guys.
All right, so also on the front page of Daily Trust, this is a matter that is hugely important because there's been pockets, reports here and there, which appeared isolated at those times about certain repentant Boko Haram personnel who were in the army, either slitting somebody's throat in one part of the country or doing something like that. And then this is the one that, for some people, they might feel, look, they've had it. Some repentant Boko Haram insurgents, the paper reports that on Tuesday night invaded a police station in Maiduguri, and they said it was in an attempt to set free their colleagues that were arrested over alleged drug offenses. So even though the state government says, look, they've not been briefed, they are waiting to be briefed, and of course we're hoping that it won't take forever for them to be briefed, because the authorities need to then have a look on this matter. They need to speak to these issues. It's so important that the NSA cannot ignore this, because if you're getting these kinds of reports in different states of so-called repentant Boko Haram members in the army doing this, so won't those who had said, look, they have a huge problem with the concept of what these repentant persons being brought into the army, deradicalization, all of that process, they had questioned it, because several key persons who were supposed to sign up didn't even sign up, because the press didn't even hear from some of those key officials or key institutions. So now they're already in the army. Who knows how far, how deep they've gone? Who knows what next might happen? If this one's going to contain themselves to do this, I think we need to really be concerned of this one going forward.
Indeed, Chamberlain. Yeah, well, I think also on the front pages there of the Daily Trust, you also see that an expert is saying that that program might be due for a review. Considering how long it's been going on for, it will be good to know what exactly has been the progress of those who have been de-radicalized. Has it really made a difference? Is the government really monitoring their progress to know whether their de-radicalization program has worked? You can have a sample and think that this is something that is feasible. But by the time you're done and you have a review, you will be able to know whether this is a program that you should continue with or this is a program that you should discontinue. But this sort of report that they were involved in raiding police stations, raiding immigration offices, and all manner of things, on the front pages, certainly says a lot about that particular program and the need for there to be a review. But I want to take another look. I think at the sports minister this morning, I want to take a look at the Guardian front page. Is something that should be of concern to him. How dodgy officiating, complicit club officials, supporters ruin games. People have talked about how we need to support our own, and they've talked about the glory days of when we used to support local football and the local league, and they've wondered what exactly has gone wrong that everybody is now focusing on the English Premier League, focusing on all the other leagues apart from the Nigerian Premier League. After all, the fact that you support English Premier League or you support a club there doesn't mean you cannot support a local club here back home. But sadly, it is that our own clubs have gone into oblivion. And there have been many attempts to revive it. The NPFL came into existence, even though it came with some controversy. The fact that it's still not, performing up to par with the sort of reports we're seeing here means that something really needs to be done. There is potential here. Our talents are exported all of the time. People still look abroad. But when you look at the fact that, when you look at the potential that sport has to be able to, get youths engaged, to be able to support their creative energy, to put Nigeria on the front pages, in the limelight, and for it to really help the country excel, this is something that should really grab the attention of the minister. Now, Chairman, I'll be very honest with you. That's not really what I wanted to focus on. My own interests were actually stories on the front page of Vanguard newspapers, Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. Federal government allegation, divisive, distracting. That's a story that the federal government might want to take a second look at. And the fact that resident doctors are protesting the shortage of manpower, others in Kogi. So that's something that also should be occupying the attention of the Kogi state government at this time.
Look, so many things are just wrong. So many. Because when you mention all of those, a deluge of scenario just flood my memory in terms of, that's just one. What if you go to the hospitals that exist and see the conditions that these doctors have they operate in? See how patients, look, we don't want to, but these are facts, stark reality of what we need to address. So you can imagine the mental health of those who report these cases on a daily basis. It's World Press Freedom Day. We'll talk about that when we come back in a moment. Don't go away.
Know that you can now print all your essential items for events without even having to leave your home? It's the Cast Print's combo deal for all events.
Yes!
Weddings, conferences, birthdays, burials, etc. Starting from 495,000 naira only. You get 50 invites, 50 A2 size posters, 50 16-page brochures, 1 large backdrop banner, 1 roll-up banner, 50 jotters with pens, and 50 souvenir carrier bags. Whatever event you're planning, we can adjust to your budget and quantities. Just send your pictures and other information through WhatsApp, and we shall send a design for your approval. Approve your design, and we will produce with super high-quality digital print technology. We can even arrange delivery to your location. Call us now on 0913-156-5016 or 0812-794-9323 or visit our social media pages. Cast Prints, digital printing at super speed.
To thrive in this era of heightened geopolitical risks requires strategic leadership. Thus, to optimize your decision-making quotient and conceptual credentials, Texam invites senior executives to her upcoming program, Strategic Leadership Unleashed, Thriving in an Uncertain Global World. Join world-renowned professors Rodri Laline, Paul Griffith, and John Peters in the UK, who will adopt Texam's tested and proven methodology, which makes learning fun while enhancing your leadership prowess. Date 27 to 30 May. Secure your spot and enjoy a 1.8 million naira discount. If you apply before May 10th, don't just navigate uncertainty, thrive in it. For more information, call +44 7425 883 791 or email exec@texam.co.uk. Texam, insights that inspire, actions that change the world.
The Duchess International Hospital caters to every aspect of a family's health needs. A one-stop shop for maternity and child health services, emergency medicine and critical care, medical and surgical subspecialties, dental and eye care, and a range of other subspecialties and services, all available at a single location right here in the heart of Ikeja. And it really doesn't matter if you're paying out of pocket using your HMO or private insurance. We focus completely on providing that world-class affordable healthcare for all the family at all times.
All right, welcome back. As you've seen that Mr. Lanre Arugundade joins us next. He is the Executive Director, International Press Center, as we discuss the World Press Freedom Day. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Yes, it's, World Press Freedom Day 2024. I mean, before you come to the environment theme for this year, just take us down memory lane for a bit, if you will. The previous ones, I mean, yes, it's fundamentally meant to at least point attention to different agencies, institutions, government for the challenges and why certain things need to be done right. So from a few years ago till today, the previous scenarios that we've had on Press Freedom Day, calling attention to them, do you think we've made progress, and what would you make of it if at all we have?
It's quite unfortunate to say that we've not made much progress. We have not really made progress. And in some instances, it seems as if we are retrogressing when it comes to press freedom or even freedom of expression in Nigeria. And in a short while, we will be releasing some data because we're having a World Press Freedom Day program here at IPC in conjunction with Media Rights Agenda and Center for Media and Society. And collectively, we've documented instances of attacks on journalists. IPC alone has documented about 44. Apart from, I mean, this was the year 2023. But even as we speak, recently we knew what happened with a journalist, Segun Olatunji, who was, detained, was arrested, was chained, was detained, and also chained in detention. And the kind of scenario that we used to experience under the military. So when you look at instances like that, you really wonder whether those, in government really want the media to hold them accountable for their actions, and whether they are prepared to follow the due process, the rule of law, where they believe that journalists have erred. The allegation against Segun Olatunji, for example, is that he published a false story. And for us, we're not in defense of publication of falsehood by anybody. But what we say is that where such is the case, there are mechanisms to address that. We have institutional mechanisms. The media in Nigeria has actually put together a complaints commission that even has representative of the government. We have the law courts that has the right to look into cases of defamation, libel, and the rest of them. So we worry that increasingly those in government do not want to follow these processes, and that is a major concern. And I'm sure later today you are going to get information about the Press Freedom Index across the world. Obviously, Nigeria is not going to rate very well on that index because of instances like this. So for us, we haven't seen the kind of progress we should see. We are really worried about this, and we believe that something should be done.
What is your mindset about the theme, a press for the planet? Incidentally, I see behind you there, it looks like that. Well, I was wondering, what's going on? Why you didn't choose this? So
what's going on? Yes, I know. Because usually World Press Freedom Day, you want to talk about journalists in danger, journalists in war, Palestine, Gaza, and the rest of them. Quite interesting, really. But I think it's so this theme, and the theme was chosen by UNESCO. Okay. The idea of World Press Freedom Day is a UNESCO's idea, even though the history started in Africa. Following a major media conference in Namibia, Windhoek, Namibia, in 1991. But that is just by the way. Now, this theme is one, a wake-up call on the media to pay attention to the environment and environmental justice. At the same time, it is a celebration of journalists who have used their tools to talk about the challenge of the environment. And that is why, the theme goes further to say that this story must be told. So UNESCO is also launching a This Story Must Be Told campaign, where essentially they are saying that we in the media should even not think that we are safe. As a matter of fact, there are those who have also accused the media of contributing to environmental pollution. They say that the tools and equipment that we use are part of emissions, are part of pollution. So the media is not that on mute, but they're really talking about the dangers. And so today, UNESCO is actually recognizing the works of photographers that have used their tool to tell these stories. There is one, for example, called Mehdi, M-E-H-D-I, who has really gone around the world. And one of the photographs that is being exhibited is a photograph of a young girl that is peeping from the window in Indonesia looking at a flood. And what is the story behind that? The story behind that is that it is projected that by the year 2050, thousands of islands in Indonesia, including Java, where the capital is located, are likely to go underwater. But if you are thinking that this does not affect us in West Africa, it's a joke. Studies have also shown that 31% of the population in West Africa, and particularly the commercials, the businesses and so on, live in the coastal area. So you're talking of the likes of Dangote Refinery, the Lekki Free Zone, and so on. These are coastal areas. And it's also projected that by 2050 or thereabouts, the coastal areas of West Africa may actually go underwater.
Yeah.
So that would also affect the media. So in a sense, they are trying to say that we're not telling those stories enough.
Okay.
And the linkage with press freedom now is that when we now tell those stories, those in government must recognize that we're doing so because we want to save the planet, and they should not come after us. So we ask questions. We ask whether there's environmental impact assessment of the Lagos-Calabar Highway, for example. We ask, all those questions. When there are floods and we raise these things and we publish it, it's not to embarrass any government. It's to say that, look, we face real dangers and we are not paying attention to that. So for me, this is the significance of the theme of this year's World Press Freedom Day.
Yeah, because I was even going to also ask you if, at the point where you spoke about West Africa, I was going to ask, look, if journalists, back home here, localizing this, if we are able to properly internalize that and then report that enough to the extent that we focus rightly on those matters, because we know how the climb here operates. Sometimes, political stories hog the headlines a lot. They relegate some of these other issues that affect human lives to the background, and then it doesn't get enough spotlight. And so I was going to ask you, look, if we're focusing enough on those issues to the extent that we understand the essence and then make sure that if they're embarrassed, so be it. Because, if they're embarrassed enough to take action to save human lives, then it's a good thing. So,
I do not think we're focusing enough, quite frankly. And Chamberlain, you need to go to the hinterland, really, and go to places where some of us, grew up. And I think Ayo was making the point somewhat earlier in your earlier conversation when you were doing this paper review about the environment. You have high-level deforestation going on in parts of Southwest, at least that I'm familiar with, that we used to have, forest reserves. These have implications for people's means of livelihood. We recall the environmental pollution in Ogoniland, in all those places where people are no longer able to farm, where people are no longer able to fish as a result of the pollution of environment. How about mining? Do you know that a lot of illegal mining is going on across Nigeria? We report this in terms of, these people have come, they are stealing our wealth, they are taking the money. But we are also not talking about the fact that a day will come when you will have collapse, of these minings, when you would have, land erosion because of lack of environmental, protection. So these stories are not, told enough. And UNESCO is saying we must, tell these stories. And like I said, when we tell these stories, it's a wake-up call. Because if West African coastline is submerged, comes underwater, we all suffer for it. That is just the truth of the matter. Are we then going to run, everybody will move interland? That's in itself, is a danger. So for me, we need to tell, these, stories that affect the livelihood of our peoples. In the past, it used to be desert erosion that we used to talk about. Even that, we no longer, talk about it. So when we talk of food scarcity, when we talk of, all these problems, to what extent do we realize that this has to do with pollution, with climate change, that nothing is being done? Look at the weather in Nigeria in the past few months, past few weeks. It's been very, very hot. People are complaining. People cannot sleep, and so on and so forth. In some parts of the country, women are protesting that because of heat, their husbands are not moving near them and they are going to the streets. If you could say that is funny or bizarre, but it shows the reality of our existence. So it's a wake-up call. And for us on the occasion of World Press Freedom Day, the message to our government is that when we as journalists come around to ask questions about some of these things, about your projects, we ask about environmental impact assessment, we ask about whether in fact you really have a contingency plan, because it's gotten to a stage where government need to begin to declare a state of emergency on the environment. And that when we do that, they should not just see us as busybodies, or that it's because we want to pull down the government of the day. It's because we are genuinely concerned, because it's like when you say the sky is going to collapse, like Yoruba used to say, it's not just about somebody's case, it's for all of us.
It is, I was just thinking in my head how significant it is then that Leila Salami Johnson asked that question asked that question of the Minister of Works, Mr. Dave Umahi, as to whether or not they had an environmental impact assessment or whether an exemption had been granted. And on this particular part, when you look at just how important, given what it is that you have said, is, and all of the press conferences that will be holding later today, those are going to be organized by press bodies, and even that going to be held by the Ministers of Information and Environment. The importance of collaboration, to get voices, to make sure that these questions being asked are even louder, and that, the questions are not ignored, and that answers are provided, cannot be swept under the carpet, cannot be underestimated. Would you say that we're saying enough of that on the part of journalists here in Nigeria and even media houses to ensure that when important questions are asked, given how, given the import and how significant the answers will be for everybody involved, that answers are actually provided?
Well, you see, I feel that we need to take collective actions. And the instance which we cited, the question asked the minister about environmental, impact assessment, now is a question that all of us, should be asking, so that it doesn't become the problem of that, journalists alone. But it's not just in relation to that. It's a question that we need to ask in all other, spheres, because we're talking about attracting foreign investment, bringing foreign investment, and what are the implications of some of these things, for our society. Now, we've also gotten to a stage where we believe we need to dialogue more with government, because there seems to be a lack of understanding of the important role of the media in a democracy. And if you are aware, over time, we've talked about the need for us to have a national mechanism on safety of journalists and press freedom, essentially for us to let those government know that the way this thing works is that information is actually the oxygen of democracy. We know people who have left government and need the media to talk about their issues, particularly when they are facing alleged persecution or maybe prosecution by their alleged political enemies. These are quite important. What we want to see is for our leaders not to take offense when such questions are asked, and when they take offense, then let all of us begin to ask that question. One of the most one of the best films I ever watched is a film titled Spartacus, which has to do with the revolt, the revolt by a slave led by Spartacus, who felt that he needed to break his chains. And at the point where they came for Spartacus, people gathered together and they were looking for him, and they were asking them and said, who is Spartacus? And each and every one of them started standing up and saying, I am Spartacus, I am Spartacus, I am Spartacus, really. That is the point that we are making. So we are that journalists that ask that question. because it's important for us, it's important for the country. So when things like this happen, we all should become that person. If tomorrow Channels Television is legally shut down by NBC, then we should all rise up and say, we are Channels TV. We're saying that because we are the media, and we feel that we are increasingly endangered. But we hope there will be some understanding, and media organizations are initiating all forms of initiatives that will bring us together with government, and hopefully one day we will have in this country either a national mechanism or a national policy on safety of journalists and press freedom that provides a comprehensive enlightenment on the roles and responsibilities that we all have to play to ensure that at the end of the day, the citizens are able to get the kind of information with which they can make informed choices. That is why we're talking about this environment. Our role now is to provide that information, to prepare the people, to know what they need to do, to also know their own responsibilities, because almost everything we do is about the environment. So tomorrow we may decide to call our government. For example, look at Kenya. In Kenya, you don't just use plastic anyhow. They've gone far. I discovered that through a book I just reviewed, when the spirits tell you your name, by Wale Bakari, who is a widely traveled safety trainer, who talked about the fact that if you go to Kenya and you just pick a plastic bottle, you could be liable. But look at our environment. Everybody with dumb plastics are clogged, not just our drainages, but even our seaways. So these are things we need to talk about. And unfortunately, the answers to most of our questions would have to come from the people in government. They should be prepared, and they should not take offense when such questions are asked.
It is interesting that you say that we have to sit with governments, or that we have to sit with our own government for them to understand the importance of the media to democracy. I do not know if that is what will be needed across the world, because from what we hear from Reporters Without Borders, who measure the index of freedom or press freedom, they see that press freedom is worsening in spite of the fact that democratic frontiers are increasing. And that's, for some people, it's very questionable. Do we really have a democracy? Because how can you have a democracy without free media? Are you really saying that those who operate within a democracy are not aware of the import or the importance of having a free media, a truly free media within a democracy?
Well, I think their behavior suggests that they're either not aware or pretend not to be aware, or perhaps that it's something in government that makes people to change their attitude. Now, I understand your question very well. And the truth of the matter is that we do all these things. We're going to release figures today. We release data. In the past 1 year, in 2023, the International Press Center must have issued over 30 press releases condemning attacks on journalists. Now, those who do this also, give their own, reasons one way or the other, most of which are never acceptable to us. But we are operating under important frameworks, particularly that of the United Nations, that talks about the 3 Ps when it comes to, journalism. Talks about, protection, talks about, prosecution and prevention. So we're looking at these 3 Ps. Now, when you look at these 3 Ps, there's no way they can come into reality in the Nigerian society if we do not have, the government side. And in some, parts of the world, mechanisms have actually been put in place, to protect, press freedom. And to that extent, we can't run away from engagement with the Parliament, the National Assembly, and even the executives. Our own reasoning is that if we have, this kind, of dialogue, perhaps we may be able to enlighten them, better and commit them, because already they are actually committed, but they are not living to that expectation. I mean, the African Charter on Peoples and Human Rights provides for press freedom and freedom of expression. And Nigeria, in fact, that it's actually part of our law, as the likes of Femi Falana, Chief Advocate of Nigeria, will tell you. So they are obligated. Even ECOWAS has protocols that talk about the need for press freedom and freedom of expression, but we still then have these problems. And so to that extent, we just felt that let us see what we can do. The Constitution itself needs to be strengthened. We do not have express provision for press freedom in our Constitution like we have it in a jurisdiction like Ghana. In Ghana, the Constitution insulates the state or government media from the control of the government of the day, because the government is not allowed to appoint the editors or the managers of those institutions. We need to also, fight within this space for some of these things. And truly, we cannot run away, from, having that kind of engagement if it does not lead to the goal we are pursuing, which is the goal of, a framework, a national policy or mechanism on the safety and protection of press freedom. Then it will be clearer to everybody that, our government are not, prepared. If it leads to what we want, then it also means that we are perhaps, making, some progress, and nobody would accuse us of just only interested in, attacking the government, in condemning the government, without, trying to look at what can be done within, frameworks that are legitimate or even constitutional. So that is the point that, we are making. They do not need to be told, really, because this is a democracy. And they swear to oath. The oath is to protect the Constitution. The Constitution provides for freedom of expression. So in reality, I agree with you. Yeah. Nobody in government should be told that it's wrong for you to go and pick a journalist and use your power to throw him into detention without following the due process of law. When those things happen, we challenge them, go to court. And you are aware that there's been a number of some victories, even court orders calling on government to reopen investigations to killing of journalists. It's not as if we are surrendering. We will continue to fight on all those fronts, but more importantly, we're also saying that, look, let's see whether some, other forms.
Mr. Arugunade, if you can still hear me, I'd like to take you back to something that you started to talk about when my colleagues were talking with you earlier. You talked about illegal mining, you talked about one or two other things. And it is what many people do not know that the United Nations regards as environmental crimes. Environmental crimes have been, put into 5 specific catchments: wildlife crimes, illegal mining, pollution crimes, illegal fishing, illegal logging. When we talk about crimes generally, talking about corruption generally, our attention rarely goes to environmental crimes or environmental corruption. Is that, how significant would you say that has been in the cause of saving or protecting the planet? The fact that we haven't given it enough attention, maybe even as pressmen.
Well, it's quite significant. You talk about environmental, crime, but there's also environmental justice. That is justice for those, fighting for the environment. Because what we've discovered is that those who take up the cause of the environment also face the wrath of the governments, of some governments. Don't forget that the only offense that the likes of Ken Saro-Wiwa committed was that they were fighting for the end of pollution in Ogoni land, among others, that led them to talk about the right to self-determination.
The challenge there, Mr. Arugunade, well, that is, of course, definitely appreciated, and it's something we can also talk about. Just a second.
We have not really done enough. Yes. Because all these 5 areas that you have identified, our responsibility as media now is to begin to look at these. And to the extent that it's a United Nations something, Nigeria is part of United Nations. Each year, our leaders go to the United Nations General Assembly. So when it comes to that, those are the kind of questions we need to ask them.
But the challenge I'm trying to draw attention to, my apologies, Mr. Arugunade, the fact that I'm trying to draw attention to is the fact that they're not even considered environmental crimes. I don't know how many times the Federal Ministry of Solid Minerals under Mr. Alake now has talked about the fact that illegal mining is a terrible, horrible thing that is going on, and it's almost as if it's kind of insulated. Some governors complain about illegal mining, and these things seem like, they're just things we talk about from here here and there. Talk about illegal logging. I don't know the number of times we've heard the fact that it is because of illegal logging that certain kinds of floodings in certain communities and areas have gone on. The fact that we are not even aware is one thing. The fact that we have spokespersons of these people who are supposed to be our colleagues representing, supposedly representing their principles, who are expected to know these things, do not know them. How do we circumvent that? I'm not placing it as a problem for the media, but the fact that they're not even aware, that's a problem.
So this is why this conversation then becomes very important. Remember, the first point I made when I started this conversation was the fact that looking at the themes of this year's World Press Freedom Day, that first is a wake-up call for us, to do more, because it then means that even as media now, based on this theme, we need to look into all these issues. Some of these things you raised, and then go from there to now ask questions that if this is supposed to be a crime, what exactly is the government doing about it beyond lamentation? Would also be that along the line there are collusions, because who gives these people the right or the licenses or the permission to enter our forest and begin to fell all our trees, causing flooding, like you said. So we now need to ask questions. And what we're saying now is that going from this World Press Freedom Day, when we come around to ask these questions, they must be prepared to provide answers, because our interest is to save the environment. The dimensions of environmental crises are perhaps better imagined, and quite frankly, we need to do more. So I'm not saying that those things are not crimes; they are. But then, do we have legislations that treat them, as crimes? These are very, important questions, and I just hope that, as media organizations, will recognize the important role that we need to play in this process.
Okay. Well, two issues that I want to quickly raise with you. Now, there is hardly a state in Nigeria that doesn't have some kind of development master plan. And some of these master plans usually have allocations for wetlands, for forest reserves, and the rest of them. But what we have found out over time is that sometimes some government officials, or maybe even the governments themselves, go and erode their own plans, or maybe in the interest of whatever, rewrite these plans for some kind of favors or the other. Now, how do we protect the environment, not just through policies, but through development plans, to ensure that areas that should not be developed are not developed in the interest not just of the environment, but of the people in those environments? Because if those environments are eroded, then the ecological balance of humanity itself is distorted. So how do we ensure that the states, when they come up with development plans, they actually have environments where they protect the environment, the areas where they protect the environment, and those things are insulated even from any kind of erosion by whoever comes into power?
I would say, on this question, I would say that first, we have to have those development plans made public. And this is where journalists can make use of instruments like Freedom of Information Act, to know what these plans are, because it's not supposed to be an exclusive monopoly of those in government. There must be public knowledge. It is when we have those plans that we can then ask relevant questions, talk to experts on the environment and see to what extent, and where there are alterations to those plans, we must also seek explanations for them. Because what I see over time is that when you see governments go to do demolitions, they will tell you that, well, people are constituting themselves to nuisance, they are building on areas where they should not build. And in a lot of times, you are not even sure whether that exactly is the case. So truly, you have all those development plans or even master plans, but there has to be publicity about them. There has to be public enlightenment about those plans, so that you do not come around and blame citizens for doing what they are not supposed to do. And when you have these things happen, again, questions have to be asked. Who gave all those approvals? Things don't just happen in this country. So there's a lot of accountability issues around issues of master plan and around the environment that I feel that requires the engagement of the media at this point in time.
We have to thank you for talking to us this morning, Larry Arogunda, the Executive Director, International Press Center, on this occasion of World Press Freedom Day, the planet for the environment and journalism in the face of environmental challenges. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, and happy World Press Freedom Day.
Thank you.
To you, our colleagues there at Channel Television. Thank you for the good work that you do. Thank you.
And we'll extend that to all our colleagues as well across the board. This country, as a matter of fact, they're all doing the challenge is huge. Okay, so this particular narrative, I don't know how much time we've got now to focus on this report in Ogun State. I don't know that recently the CNG explosion, the truck, and so the governor, we had the Minister of State for Gas, did visit there. And then the governor eventually did say he questioned the quality, the standard of some of those trucks that are even conveying the CNG. But, there are some things that we appear to be glossing over about this CNG. I know that we've asked different questions of different government agencies about CNG. The government, the president did say they're going to come up with CNG buses in the country. The FCT, different states, there seems to be this rush and clamor for CNG. But this explosion raises some questions. I know that ordinarily we have challenges about standardization and ensuring that already, look, you see trucks, vehicles that are not even properly supervised, so many things go on. And then you're going to be having these CNG canisters in vehicles. Now, they always say that, look, this is compressed natural gas. It's supposed to be safer than LPG. That notwithstanding, guys, if you look through history, you will see this year, February 2024, there was a CNG explosion in Los Angeles. There was a CNG explosion as well in 2021 in India. And it's been reported in different countries that you see some of this CNG being utilized. So despite the standards that they do have there, they're faced with that kind of challenge. How about us here? What are we doing about it?
Chamberlain, look, when I saw this report yesterday, I said, I don't want to say I said it, but a part of me was saying, yes, Mark, where you were right to still be very reluctant to, market this thing because you haven't tried it. The people who are marketing it to us, do they have it in their vehicles? Because this CNG, which is supposed to be the alternative to petrol, the alternative also to diesel, because it's supposed to be cheaper. It's supposed to be, when eventually your car is refitted to be able to use CNG, the cylinder is going to be in your car. It's going to be in the boot of your car. And if you're driving an SUV, it's going to be at the back of the car, not outside the car, inside the car. So this accident which occurred, this truck was said to be carrying, was conveying gas, but also was powered by CNG, 4 cylinders attached to it. If you saw the report there, you would have seen 4 cylinders on the floor burnt by the remains of the truck. The gas which the truck was carrying was perfectly intact. There was nothing wrong with that gas. The compartment carrying the goods was okay. But the truck itself and the cylinders which, were powering the truck seem to be the things that have been impacted, which now calls to question the quality of the cylinder. So SON is being asked questions, are you certifying the cylinders which will be used? Look, this is extremely important because if CNG is the way to go, if it's the alternative means which government intends to market to the people, and these cylinders are going to be in their cars, don't forget that we already have You know, we already had a huge problem marketing LPG to ordinary people because people were not sure about the safety of LPG cylinders. People were afraid about how these things can, you know, go up in flames in their homes, etc., etc. But thankfully, we're getting over that now with a little more education. Now, we're having this challenge with CNG. There needs to be more than talk for people to be able to take this on. If any cylinder is going to be in my car, there must be there must be double, triple assurances, and I must see people at the very top whose cars have been converted. Maybe the minister the gas minister.
You're going to be checking their boots.
No, his own vehicle which he's carrying about. After all, are we not trying to save money for government? Is government not trying to? All of these vehicles are going about, you know, being powered by petrol. The convoys we see. Aren't you trying to save money for government? If we're trying to save money for government, you would think that we want to do the right thing and make sure that all the vehicles are using CNG. They will be the best marketers of this particular product. Sadly, I think we're out of time, Ayo. Maybe we can still admit it.
What came to my mind the moment you started that conversation was, do the cylinders expire? Because we have many expired tires that continue to pop up here and there. Already we carry gas around, the petrol we're using is largely, you know, in some sense, gas. And the issues are not just going to go away. Education, education, education. I think that's the most important element in all of this conversation. Now that this is out, and thankfully the government is getting ahead of it, let's get more education for people, not just to inform them, but to educate them. And when questions are asked, let's not defend, let's educate, because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. And well, Marco, since you talked about LPG, you're talking about food in the kitchens, right? Let's go talk to Ini John Mekwa. She's going to be talking, among other things, on Business Morning on Sunrise Daily this morning, leveraging comparative advantage for food security. Ini.
Thank you so much, Ayo. I don't think I can let that conversation pass by me. Yes, Mark, I'm with you on this one. Let's find out from the government, talk to the minister. Have they converted their vehicles yet? I mean, now, leadership is by action, after all. It's not just by, you know, talking or preaching. So I guess when I see the convoy of the president driving CNG vehicles, I'm going to convert mine. If not, let me follow my leaders. But good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. And yes, we are doing business here. We'll discuss that food security. Do you know that you have a comparative advantage? Or do you know that your local government area does have what it could produce, you know, sustainably into the basket of food basket of Nigeria? Well, we'll get onto that, but let's start from the global space now with oil prices. It edged up on Friday on the prospect of OPEC Plus continuing output cuts, but the crude benchmarks were headed for the steepest weekly losses in 3 months on demand of uncertainty and easing tensions in the Middle East, which is reducing supply risks. Now, let's have the numbers. I hope we can have the numbers right there. Brent for July, you know, the futures for July, that's what's trading now, rose 0.49% to $84.82 a barrel. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude for June was also up 0.47% to $79.32. Both benchmarks are on track for weekly losses as investors worried about the prospect of higher for longer interest rates curbing growth in the United States, which is the top global oil consumer, and in other parts of the world. Later on today, Friday, the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics will release its monthly non-farm payroll report with a measure of the strength of the country's job market, and is considered by the Fed when setting interest rates. Higher rates typically weigh on the economy and reduce oil demand. Also today, Friday, energy services firm Baker Hughes is due to release its weekly count of oil and gas rigs, which is an indicator of future crude outputs. Back in Nigeria, let's look at the Naira. See, that's doing its mixed sentiment. Well, a lot of people have said the Naira is trying to find its true value. So we hope that's it. NAFEM, on NAFEM, we saw that the Naira traded at the wake of the holiday. Remember, there was a holiday the day before. Most bids were lower than offer. Hence, there was a lot of demand that did not meet supply. So Naira depreciated on NAFEM, lost 11 Naira 71 kobo to close at 1,402 Naira 67 kobo. That's on NAFEM. On NAFEX, however, there was appreciation. Still, I think that's the second trading appreciation for the week. Gained 13 Naira yesterday, 13 Naira 12 kobo to close the day at 1,383 Naira 74 kobo. And we know that in the BDCs, the parallel market, the Naira has more value at this rate, depending on how you can negotiate. But generally, there's more value on the Naira on the BDCs at this time. And also a bit of good news for Nigeria. In April, Nigeria's private sector witnessed a slight easing on inflationary pressures following steep increases in purchase costs and selling prices in March. So it's not that inflation is reducing, but it's that the rate of increase is reducing. So that's the reduction in inflationary pressure. So as a result, the Purchasing Managers Index as the PMI rose marginally 51.1, and that's coming from 51. So it's really slight. It's slight, but it's still an upward movement. That signals a fifth consecutive month of improved business conditions, and this is according to the latest report by Stanbic IBTC Bank. Factors such as currency fluctuations heavily influence prices, leading to slower growth in purchase prices and output charges, though inflation remains significant. Well, despite a slowdown in inflationary pressure across all sectors covered, it continued to hamper output and new orders, which remained stagnant compared to the previous month, while agriculture and manufacturing sectors experienced notable output growth. Services activity, however, declined, though employee expenses increased modestly. Overall employment remained stable, with some firms reducing staff because of cost pressure. Well, despite these challenges, rising new orders led to modest expansion in PMI and inventory holdings at the start of the second quarter. Meanwhile, sentiment dipped from March, remaining historically low despite expectations of future growth driven by business expansions and higher new order. A bit of corporate earnings now. We know this is the season, been seeing it pouring in. Transcorp has its own out now for the first quarter of 2024. Transcorp Hotels, that is, Transcorp Hotel PLC has released that unaudited financial statement for the period ended March the 31st, 2024. The company recorded a 72% increase in revenue to 13.8 billion naira. That's compared to 8 billion naira reported in Q1. Revenue was up 13.8 billion, 72%. And then also when you look at other part, profit before tax was up 568%, that's amounting to 6 billion. Compared to 911.6 million during the same period last year. Profit after tax grew by 844% year-on-year, compared to 5 billion, compared to 531 million naira in the same period of last year. Occupancy grew by 82%. First quarter of this year from 75 same time last year, and the director and chief executive officer Dupe Olushola believes that this is a demonstration of the company's commitment to excellence and superior performance, with leveraged opportunities across segments for continuous growth. All right, so talking about that conversation of a comparative advantage in different areas of Nigeria to boost food security, to secure food supply more, among other agro-allied products. We'll take that conversation just after this break. Do stay with us.
Investing in the capital market can be tricky as the numbers move in different directions. Sometimes the bull bellows, other times it's the beer that pours. In all of these, an investment decision has to be made. On Capital Market, we help you take the right decision. Join us at 7 p.m. every Saturday, only on Channels Television. Capital Market, investment tips for you.
You're welcome back. So now let's have that conversation and find out perhaps you do have something at your backyard that you have not been using. So we have the president of Agric and Industrial Entrepreneurs of Nigeria, Mr. Chukwu Nwachukwu, joins us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Nwachukwu, good morning and thank you for your time.
Again.
Mr. Chukwu, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yeah, I can hear you now. Good morning. Welcome to the studio. So I know you've been at this for a while, trying to promote the fact that every region, every local government has at least one crop to contribute to food security in the country. What's your level of findings now? What's your level, or what's the updates at this time?
Well, you know, in this country, it's known for delay. But what we're trying to do is to aggregate all the necessary stakeholders together. Thus far, we've made tremendous progress. We've been in touch with a development finance institution, has shown a great deal of interest. We're also in touch with the Deposit Money Bank. They showed a lot of interest. So we're moving forward, having aggregated the funds that would be utilized to fund these agropreneurs together. And once we've done that, I believe later on this year it will take off. What is happening in our country is that we create budgets and try to run business-related issues through government funding. It's not going to work. I've told you that before. Government cannot create employment. Employment must be private sector driven.
So in your interaction, you know, with community members, different communities, and all of that, what has been the perception of the individuals in those areas?
Oh, I can't hear you there. Sorry. I lost you there.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, so I was asking of you the reaction of the community members in the different areas, you know, that these crops are domiciled and you're trying to galvanize the support. What has been their perception so far?
Excited. There's excitement. There's serious excitement. Are waiting for this program to take off. We're just trying to put all the indices together. We're going to have a financial model that actually works, you know, and we need to bring this money into them at single-digit rate. We had meetings with a great organization, Development Bank of Nigeria. I think they'll be on board. We're also talking with some other deposit money banks. It's a huge program, which would initially put about 60,000 agropreneurs as a pilot project, meaning that we're going to select 2 states per zone, and then 12 states, average of 20 people, 20 local governments. And if we put 250 people in a cluster, we're looking at 60,000. But at maturity, we're going to have about 1,000 people per local government. And we've emphasized that it is such a massive job creation program. If you put 774 local government, put 1,000 people per local government, we're looking at 774,000 people. And the job creation aspect of it is close to 10 million jobs. And when you look at those food items or the produce, we're looking at creating for local consumption. We're also looking at creating for industrialization, which is a topic you're talking about. We're also looking to create it for export. So the excitement is there. We're just putting together the papers now with our team and some consultants, and then we hope the presidency will be there. It goes to what the president is looking for, which is food security. And you can imagine when we produce all the food in the country, to reduce the pressure on the naira. And, I think that with that kind of production, exchange rate will stabilize and there'll be food in the country.
So help us to understand or paint the picture of how you hope this will work, and what areas will be involved in the pilot. I'm sure you're not working with the whole 774 local government areas in the pilot stage. So tell us which areas, which crops, and then how exactly you hope it will work.
Okay, the crops, initial crops, there's a gap between, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mr. Chikwe. I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Okay. If I can get what deduce from what you were saying, the initial crops we're targeting, the initial crops we're targeting will be cassava, it will be tomatoes, it will be maize, it will be the soybean, it will be ginger, it will be wheat. We're looking at crops that can turn over within a 1 year, 1.5 year gestation period. And the crucial part of what we're doing is that we're looking at creating employers of labor, agripreneurs. These are entrepreneurs who would in turn create employment, So when we look at this economy, these are necessary items that we need both for domestic consumption and also to power the industrial takeoff of the comatose industries. There's a lot of industries there. Now, the secondary nature of what we're doing is that we're going to create raw materials for further processing, creating further employment at the secondary level. This program will take off. It's not dependent on government, but government will, buy into it. It's dependent on what the development finance institutions, create. And it's fully collateralized. The government just made the pronouncement. They put $200 billion into SME. With due respect, that's just money for the boys, as usual. And the people who might be implementing them are just going to be, contracts given mindset. And that never works. It never works. The only intervention agency that the government has created thus far is the National Agricultural Development Fund, which I think it will do, if they partner with the private sector that we're trying to partner with them, then we can advance the prospect of creating that food security and creating employment at the same time. Other than that, they get it right, and I believe they have a good team there. They get it right, and with us, we're going to be able to do it together.
So how do you intend for this to work? Do you approach farmers in these different local government areas? Or do you fund them, or do you work with them? How exactly do you see it working?
Well, that's why we're turning... Can hear you. But if I heard you correctly, asking how we intend for it to work. We're going to create this 774,000 people, or their target at maturity will be about 1 million people. Okay? Those are entrepreneurs. We call them agripreneurs. They become employers of labor, and they will produce for profit. Every business is profit-driven. So we are selecting them. They're rushing to us now, to be part of the program. So we'll create microcredit. It's a process of microcredit delivery. Well, we'll create microcredit for each person. Each person becomes his own obligor. So he knows he's producing for profit. A few years ago, when I consulted for a state government, Abia state government, on a 1 billion naira fund, I subjected them to a process of entrepreneurial training. And very funny though, each time I asked them during the training, how many of you here are businessmen and women? Nobody raised his hand. Then I'll ask them, how many of you are farmers? And everybody will raise their hands. So the underlying factor, which I'm telling you now, which I'm telling them too, which I told them, was that all of you are businessmen and women whose business is farming. So you not take like 1 million people, and you put through the value chain, they have up to maybe 10 people plus themselves. We're creating almost 10 million jobs. And each of these people being employed are paid wages. When you have paid somebody wages, the effect of wage is that it triggers a demand in the economy. A demand in the economy must trigger consequential supply. And that is the macro mix that will create wealth in the economy. So we're creating food, we're creating employment, and we're creating the source for foreign exchange earnings.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Chukwuanchukwu, President.
And by the way, you know that we're going to be partnering with you, so you'll be part of. We're proposing right now a national seminar.
Okay,
for all those people to come in.
You're sending your proposal on air. Thank you so much. Acknowledge, Mr. Wanchukwu. Thank you so much. President of Agric and Industrial Entrepreneurs of Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Ini.
All right, well, I think that's the first for me, getting a proposal, an invitation on air has been there, but proposal for an event. All right, let's move to the market now. Just before we get out of time, the NGX is back on the positive trend, and we hope that's sustained. We'll know by the close of trade today, but yesterday, the all-share index was up 0.55%. at 98,762.78. Equities cap, 303 billion naira was added to the market cap at the close of trade yesterday. 55.85 trillion naira is what the market closed with. And we see that the most liquid counter is back on the move. But, let's talk to Mr. Abdulrasheed Momo and see if we can expect this to continue, or if it's just one of those excitement that goes away before you know it. Mr. Abdulrasheed Momo, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning, and how are you?
Yeah, so we saw a positive close before the holiday, and then at the resumption of the holiday on Thursday, we saw another positive close. Are we back on the positive trend, or is this just a dead cat bounce?
I don't use the word dead cat bounce. Reports, April was not a good month at all. For the past 3 months, the market has been oscillating within about 98,000 points to about 103,000 points. But the month of May, we did see a minor breakdown from the support level, which actually threatened the market. But what I realized that for the past 3 days, I think 3 days or 4 days towards the end of the month, we saw some form of consolidation. We saw increased volumes, buyers buying into the dips and the rest. As it is now, for me, the market, is between a support of 98,000 points and 100,000 points. So we're at 98,000 points now. We hope, for me to see a new trend, the market needs to break 100,000 points first. So as it is now, possibility that perhaps getting to that resistance level might see some people taking profits. But what I can say is that we are within a trading band of 98,000 points and 100,000 points. That is the trading range for now for the market.
And we've seen a lot of results. I mean, interesting. We have first quarter results coming in. We just saw that of Transcorp Hotel this morning. And revenue growth of about, I think, about 800%. You know, really impressive. But we've also seen some other companies where there's been losses. I think we had Eternal Oil, we've had Access Co and all of that. We've also seen it's like a mixed bag. Is this affecting the sentiment of investors at this time?
Not really, because the most traded, I think the most traded sector now so far has really been the banking sector. Perhaps because we know we're in terms of dividend payout, yes, UBA has been exceptional for some time, you know, because I think they'll be paying before, I think May 10th. That stock ought to have moved a long time, but I think we saw some strong selling into about around 23 naira. But for now, as it is, the buyers were able to break that jinx. I don't know how far that stock will go, but what I can say is that you have seen, normally when I speak in terms of what I've been analyzing in terms of charts, market history. What I've noticed that Access Corp, when they marked down at 20 naira, it dropped about 16 plus. It's trying to recover now. Even the almighty Zenith that paid a dividend of 350 actually lost about 2 naira. So I hope UBA doesn't follow suit, but it shows that we now ask ourselves, do I actually wait for this dividend or I buy after markdown? You understand? So it's still shaky for now because the NGX Bank was the worst hit last month. We saw huge corrections despite all the good financials that we saw. And as we always say, the market prices in a lot of things, a discounting mechanism. With the Q1 in place, we've seen some from Stanbic, as you said, Transcorp. We are looking good, but we don't know how market is going to feel. But the most important is the market breaks 100,000 points, then we know that it's a new leg up because it's the index we now use to determine the next leg up or down. So as long as for now the index is within the trading range of 98,000 to about 100,000 points, if market breaks above 100,000 points, then we can now say this is a new leg up if it's a genuine bull trend.
So do you see this trend, this positive trend, as sustainable, or are we going back to the bear zone?
I've told you, it needs to break 100,000 points first. Let it break 100,000 points.
So do you see us breaking the 100,000 now, or are we going to have more setbacks before we go back?
No, if it breaks the 100,000 to the upside, then we know there's this current bull trend is a genuine trend. If it doesn't break 100,000 points, then we might be back to about 97,000 points, which you saw in April.
Yeah, we saw that even last week. So, just before we ask you how you think the market will close, another interesting counter is the oil and gas. You know, that counter is so quiet, even though we saw a bit of recovery this week. We've seen a bit of recovery this week, but it's so quiet. And now we have Q's back, we have Dangote, we have stories around Kaduna Refinery, Port Harcourt Refinery. This news, aren't they supposed to move the stocks on the exchange?
There's you see, on the oil sector, what you need to know that what is the most liquid stock in the oil and gas sector in terms of volatility? It's only Owando. Owando is the only one that gives volatility. If you look at corn oil moves once in a while. You might see the trend. You might see corn oil hold for about a month, a week before you see market move. You see stocks like let's say even Seplat, you understand? So it's only Owando that is the only stock that is volatile, that is liquid. So most of the movements you see, if flat or corner moves, or even MRS, you see that you hardly see movements in those stocks. It's just once in a while, you see. So all those funds cannot trigger the oil sector. It's mostly Oando that moves all the time, either up or down, that actually affects that sector. Most of the stocks in that sector are not liquid.
Oh, wow. So I wonder what's the fate of those investors in the other stocks, especially MRS that had indicated interest to delist. But thank you so much. That's how much we can take, Mr. Abdul-Rashid Momo, for your time this morning. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, there'll be more market conversation for you. Aditya there to be here with a whole load of information and conversation at 1 p.m. That's during Business Incorporated, so please join us for that. For now, we need to head back to the Sunrise Daily Studios.
Ensuring a safer highway is the objective of this area patrol. The Nigeria Police Force says it's determined and will continue to comb the Abuja-Kaduna highway and rail tracks and indeed every nook and cranny for criminals. With the patrol over, the police parade suspects, including the alleged mastermind of the Abuja-Kaduna train attack, Ibrahim Abdullahi, who is the leader of a kidnap syndicate terrorizing passengers plying the Abuja-Kaduna highway.
The same thing. This set of people are those that are attacking our power generation plants.
At a news conference in Kaduna, the police public relations officer explains how the suspect was arrested.
You will recollect that on 12 January 2024, police operatives attached to anti-kidnapping unit of Kaduna State Criminal Investigation Department, CID, based on credible information swept in and arrested one Ibrahim Abdullahi, A.K. Mande, at Abuja Kaduna Road, flyover by Rido Junction. The suspect confessed to being the leader of a kidnap syndicate terrorizing Kaduna-Abuja highway, ranked among other criminals like Dogo Gide and Bello Toji.
The police reel out statistics of other suspects arrested from January 2024 to date.
On February 29, 2024, vigilant operatives of the Kaduna Command Monitoring Unit conducted a well-coordinated operations at the residence of a suspected kidnapper. On 7th of April 2024, police operatives attached to the Force Intelligence Department Special Tactical Squad in Abuja, in collaboration with Operation Yaki operatives in Kaduna Command, arrested one Abubakar Umar, aged 20 years. Please mark the age or ages of some of the suspects we are showcasing today.
On March the 28th, 2022, suspected terrorists bombed the Abuja-Kaduna rail tracks. The train derailed after an improvised explosive device planted by the terrorists exploded underneath one of the coaches. The terrorists surrounded the train, shooting sporadically and killing 9 passengers, after which over 100 others were abducted.
All right. So a number of developments playing out in the country across board. Yes, you've seen that particular report, but don't also forget that there have been cases of illegal mining, illegal bunkering. So looking at all of these scenarios, can we connect the dots? What's actually, is this a facade to an underlying challenge or problem that we can't seem to pinpoint? We've got 2 gentlemen here to help us connect those dots. Honorable Eyozo Agbanaim, as a former member of the House of Reps, and sitting beside him, we also do have Solomon Adodo, who is a civil rights activist. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, Mark Ware.
Good to see you, Honorable.
Good morning, long time, and good morning to those out there, both home and abroad.
Honorable, let me start.
I know you are everywhere, all over the world.
Yeah, we are. Let me start with you. Looking at all of these scenarios, because chances are that when you see one particular report, you may just take it on face value on that particular case, but there's several others. So, I mean, I know you've also spoken time and again about the illegal oil bunkering, how there seems to be so much going on behind the scenes that needs urgent action. So let me start with you. From your perspective, what is it that we're missing with all of these things that are going on?
Well, thank you, Chimbalin. You know, of course, we have discussed this extensively over the years, yourself, Mark, when I was in the House of Reps. At the time, I'm emotion regarding this issue of undeclared crude oil that left Nigeria to a global destination. And I'll be talking, discussing it, and a lot of people have shown so much interest, especially your station, who stood by me and giving it a wider coverage in order to, you know, inform the public about the problem facing our dear nation. Let me tell you this. The issue of bunkering, oil theft in this country is going to require every Nigerians, patriotic Nigerians. When I always say that Nigeria, we are not broke, I mean it. Some people just believe that they own this country more than you and I, in a dubious manner. At the time, when I was in the House, with myself as a member of our committee, we traveled to Escravos just to go and see what's really going on, especially where they are, you know, looting all these oil. We got there and we saw what was an eyesore. The meter, at least, you know, when you are loading crude, there must be a meter knowing exactly the quantity that is being loaded to the tank. It will amaze you for you to know that this metering is outdated. Even the one, some of them that are working, purchased, owned at the IOC, calibrated, purchased by them, operated by them, to the detriment of all Nigerians. So bunkering, when you see, yes, I appreciate our current government, Mr. President Tinubu, is fighting the menace, trying to make sure that most of these problems are cut down to barest minimum, even though we cannot stop it. He's making huge effort, but also know there are also saboteurs, those who want to sabotage the government of the day, want to derail the will of progress of Mr. President moving forward. I said this many years ago about one singular man, Tom Polo, his effort. I was still living in the United States, in Bali. I came to do some business in Nigeria there, in Delta State. The former governor gave us to build 6 modular gas gathering plants. We came, so our foreign partners and Americans, even as at that time, the U.S. government, State Department, wrote a letter saying that no American should venture to enter the Niger Delta. But we are all afraid, seeing because of this militancy, you know, kidnapping going on in the Niger Delta, as a result of the problem facing the reason why the youth have been marginalized, people abandoned, the waterway destroyed, fishermen can no longer fish, farmers can no longer farm. So there was a lot of agitation. So this man said to us that, look, all these things they are saying about bunkering, little here, little there, the real bunkers are those that will bring tankers coming to Nigeria, loot our treasury, load crude, and they go back. So now, it's still going on. So I think I must appreciate Mr. President for finding time to give the pipeline security, the ways and means how we can cut down on the corruption of bunkering, because that is our major problem in this country. The Navy, the Army, the police, the MPA, all of them are supposed to be at the point of loading. When I went to the Escravel, none of them around. No. So these people are having a free day. It's a free day for it to continue to happen. So I want everybody, seeing a crime be committed, Chimbale, seeing a crime be committed, and refusing to report the scene of that crime to the nearest law enforcement, you are as guilty as the man or woman who committed that crime. So every Nigerian, all of us, have to be patriotic to solve this menace. It didn't start yesterday. It didn't start under President Tinubu. It has been ongoing. It has been ongoing. Who are these people? Are they not human beings? So, who are these cabal that is doing that? We cannot. That is why I also challenge him. I saw sometime when channels went down to the Riverina area.
Yeah, there's a lot to unearth on that area. But let me ask you, Mr. Adodo. I mean, when I hear Honorable talk about there's a cabal, and then people see certain scenarios with the train, with the mining, with the oil, which might have been one of the longest challenges we've had. Could it be that, I don't know if we should say, can it be deliberate, or is it that we're overwhelmed? Why do these things appear very difficult for us to address across board in different sectors?
Thank you very much for having me once more. And let me state very clearly that what you have stated is something that has been a striation through time. And these cabal, as we so call them, their aim and their intent is not just to loot or pilfer our resources, but is to turn every part of this country into cesspools of warfare, where you have militancy, you have militia, you have all kinds of things, arm them, and then let there be a conflagration of violence all over. We know how the Niger Delta was before the amnesty program, when some leaders of the ex-agitators met with the president and said, this is our region. How can we bring enduring peace? And one of those leaders was Chief Government Ekpemopolo, who we call Tom Polo. And if you look through time, over time, there has been building peace in the Niger Delta region. Look at what is happening in the north today. These people who are stealing our crude oil, what they want is a conflagration of violence everywhere, so that in the smoke screen of violence, they come, they take what belongs to our Commonwealth, pilfer it, take it to all global destinations. We've lost billions of dollars in crude oil theft. Now, recently there were award of contracts for monitoring of pipelines, transporting our crude both within and outside the country, to ensure that this crude oil theft matter is brought down to the barest minimum. The NNPC, under the current GMD, they launched a war on crude oil theft. And one of the companies that we've seen doing well, again, because I want to drive at a point, the cabal again is at it. They want to ensure that every gain that has been recorded is reversed.
So the thing is this. I mean, I hear you say the contracts are awarded. Should we even be talking about awarding contracts when we do have institutions of states established to ensure they protect certain facilities? The Navy can do a fantastic job in the first instance. So what is wrong with us ensuring that we have the Navy play a lead and extensive role above all else, and in addition to what Honorable said, have them at several loading points so that we can have a proper coordination? What's wrong with that?
Now, I will tell you something. As far back as 2017, I and my honorable brother here, we embarked on a patriotic odyssey on the issue of the security of our coastal waterways when Honorable Amechi was the Minister of Transport. And we're wondering, why will the Federal Ministry of Transport bring HLSI then for a $198 million contract for the securing of our coastal waterways? After thorough screenings, thorough scrutiny, several public hearings, the Navy also expressed the fact that there is a need for synergy, and that is where these contractors come in. They are not taking what the job of the Navy away from the Navy. For instance, I'll give you one instance. Let me use this Tantita, because we see that in the eye of the storm, Tantita has recorded so much progress.
What kind of progress have they recorded?
They have seized several vessels that are stealing crude oil across. At March last year, they've intercepted FP Amangwa, several other vessels that I cannot even begin to name. Then again, if you look at that Transfocatus pipeline, we've seen that there has been a steady incline or increase in output along that axis. I think of up to almost about 200 barrels per day. That has added so much to our oil productivity.
How did they add so much? And what facility does Tantita have? Tantita cannot even go to 34 nautical miles. I mean, the level that the Navy has, Tantita cannot smell it.
Now,
why should there be a lot of emphasis on Tantita?
I will tell you something. Why there is this emphasis. And if there is no success recorded, you see, that is why we say there needs to be synergy. The Navy is operating deeper down in the waterways. Tantita is also operating. They have knowledge of the locals. They work with all of these people who should have been the enablers. So if you want to curb something, you begin from the root. And that is what is happening. And that is why we are seeing the steady gains recorded so far.
You know, it is interesting how Honorable said that he's been raising this since he was in the Assembly, in the National Assembly. Only recently, I mean, we know that the House of Representatives has already set up another committee, I think a petroleum upstream committee, as well as a few other members are also looking at this issue of crude oil theft, as well as the executive arm of government, who has also set up something headed by Governor Hope Uzodimma of Imo State. So all of these efforts, still, crude oil theft is still rampant. We're nowhere near the 2 million barrels per day, which we used to do. I think only recently, I'm trying to remember, the Minister for Security or Defense, beg your pardon, Minister of State for Defense was the one who was saying that, their efforts are paying off. We're producing about 1.4 million barrels per day. Now, while that might be commendable in terms of the progress, because you already said we're adding another, is it 200,000 barrels per day to what we already have, it's nowhere near the 2 million barrels which we're capable of doing. So all of these committees, we've seen them pay visits, and we have also covered their visits to the Niger Delta. Do you really think that anything will come out of it?
Well, thank you, Mark. But you see, if we sit down and begin to lament without doing something about it, then we are part of the problem. I think I have to give them kudos. That's continuation, because government is continuous. Where we stopped, they are also doing exactly what we did, even though the last time they had a meeting in the area of water investigation, they also called on me. They are doing another one now. They are also reaching out to me to throw more light. Because I can tell you how much time, effort I put in with the support and the help of the United States government, especially the U.S. Customs. They stood by me. I was the chairman of U.S.-Nigeria relations in the House. So there are so many issues, so many information that sometimes I'm afraid of this great nation. The kind of money crude oil sold, money transferred to various banks, and those accounts, when I look at the money, it's mind-boggling. This is Nigerians' money. Are you with me? And I am happy that somebody is talking about it, because if you are not talking about it, that means we don't care. They are being patriotic, just like our late brother, friend, father, a senior brother to me, late Captain Osa Akumbo. Because of his patriotism, he spent his own resources at the time in order to see how he can combat the menace, this oil theft, pipeline vandalization. He spent his own money when the NNPC gave him anticipatory approval. Without one dime, he was able to help the country in order for us to have an increment in the oil production. so that our economy can improve. Nigerians can benefit from these, resources. Now, what are we talking about? We started. Somebody is also going about it. Until we hit the head. We hit the head. All of you are talking about it now. The more we talk about it, the more we now go in-depthly. Like you went to the waterways. I saw channels going. I was shocked. Do you know what it takes to drive, to take a boat, to go to the creek? Have you been there? Have you traveled to see? It's scary. I've been there severally because my local government that I represented in the past, Ikara community, is part of the Riverina area that also have a lot of oil wells. That today there is pollution, destruction, farmland destroyed, the waterway destroyed, and to the detriment of our people. And you see, fire burning, gas being fled everywhere. Yeah. And this also at the end. Yeah. The end result is sickness, health-wise. So all I'm saying is that we should not stop. So I have to applaud the National Assembly for still taking the bull by the horn. It's a problem. It's a cancer that needs serious eradication. So that is why I will say, Captain Osa from OMS. Now you're talking about
Honorable,
Navy,
if you can hear me, just 1 second, Honorable, if you can hear me. Perhaps one of the issues here is that of consequences or a lack of it. We have heard top government officials, governors, ministers mention and say, okay, this fellow or that fellow is culpable, but in most cases they shudder to name names. We've heard things like, name and shame. We've heard that certain influential Nigerians are behind one area of security or the other. But what we do not hear is consequences for these things. And there are those who believe that without those consequences, these occurrences that you're talking about are going to continue. We can talk about them until kingdom come. Nothing will happen because there are no consequences. What kind of consequences should follow such things? And why does it seem like everyone is afraid or unable to mention the people to bring the people who are directly involved in these instances to justice?
Well, thank you very much, my dear brother from Lagos. I'll say this. I am full of confidence that as from henceforth, business is not going to be as usual because there's a new sheriff in town. That new sheriff is our President Tinubu, GCFRO, who I believe is going to hit the head. Those found wanting should face the wrath of the law. Look, people steal 100,000 of naira. They end up in prison 7, 10, 15 years. Here are people stealing billions through the back door, and they are going scot-free. Nothing is happening to them.
Honorable, in this government, my apologies, in this same government, we have heard a minister say there are certain individuals that are behind this thing, certain individuals are behind illegal mining, certain people, influential Nigerians, are behind certain kidnappings, and all we have heard is government is doing something. What is the something? If there is no consequence, kidnapping is not going to end. Oil thieving is not going to end. Maybe I should ask Mr. Adodo, if he is as optimistic as you are. Mr. Adodo, are you as optimistic as Honorable Abu Naima about this particular matter, that indeed this will be curtailed? We've heard this, this rhetoric before. No consequences, and then there will be no abatement to the issues.
Well, we must state it very clear that we're in a war situation, and in a war situation, you must fight. The enemies of our nation, those who are embarking on these illegal activities, be it bunkering, illegal mining, and so on and so forth. But I'll be particular about this issue of crude oil theft. We must sustain the war. If we don't fight, there is no likelihood of victory. If we fight, there is a likelihood of victory. And in this fight, there is a need for a thorough synergy. What we have seen so far is a kind of communal ownership of the war against crude oil theft in the Niger Delta region. A synergy where most of these firms that are securing the pipelines are owned by leaders of this community. The youth of the community own the security outfit, and they bring proper reports. Again, let me also state that there is a need for double checks.
Mr. Dodo,
while the Navy is doing their
Mr.
part.
Dodo, just a second.
Yes.
I'm not sure that the question is being answered. Should there be consequences? We have heard, I mean, a long time from now. Previously, we heard that oil thieving in the Niger Delta has continued for 30 years. No one has been brought to book, to the best of my knowledge. Maybe I missed it. That's the question here. No consequences. This fight will be continuous. Who should be calling who to order?
That is the next point we need to get to. Because we've seen, I think the only thing from the records I have so far is the destruction of these vessels. We have not seen those behind, the big masquerades behind. Because if we do not punish them, if they don't serve jail term, if their properties, apart from the destruction of their vessels or the seizing of the crude, which belongs to the Nigerians, if more is not done against them, they will continue financing saboteurs. They will continue enriching their cabal. So we are using this medium to call on the president that it is not enough for us to keep backing. It is time for us to bite and bite very hard. Those who have stolen our crude, they should be prosecuted and they should serve long jail terms.
If I may add, Mr. Chamberlain, on this issue about no consequences, for me, enough is enough. There must be death sentence because it's appalling. This is disastrous. That is the reason people continue to embark on this hilarious manner of defrauding the country.
It's a matter that, of course, we will keep focusing on as much as we can. Any opportunity we do have to ensure that these things are done. But there are several recommendations out there. I mean, one of the latest one is that they're appealing to, I think, the federal government, for instance, all deactivated wellheads, let them be sealed properly for a start. Don't leave them for certain people to go and do certain things. Seal them properly. Let's start from there. You see what kind of impact that will have. So we'll separate the wheat from the chaff, in the manner of speaking. I'd like to thank both of you for coming on this morning. Solomon Adodo, civil rights activist, as well as Honorable Eyozo Agbanaima, former member of the House of Representatives. We do have some messages from you, let's see. Kenneth, he's concerned, as everybody else should be, about this niggling electricity tariff hike. He says the president recently signed the Electricity Act 2023 into law, marking an important development in the country's electricity sector. This act aims to break the monopoly in electricity generation, transmission, and distribution at the national level. There are 11 discos in Nigeria which were created in November 2013 as part of the power sector reforms, but their performance has been short of the mark in power distribution.
Well, Joshua Dibelson, talking about our conversation with Naseni DG, says to me, Naseni should collaborate with Nigerian tertiary institutions. There are lots of new innovations done by students as their projects, but government is not aware of such. Liaising with such institutions and producing such machineries and equipment will boost our economy.
Who says, talking about the minimum wage, says, let the country's minimum wage be reasonable enough to fit the Nigerian worker, whether private or public sector. At present, we have an overbloated workforce in the public sector. When we begin to pay a lowest paid worker 250,000 naira per month, the workforce will reduce in response to the wage bill. The workers will not be in excess to loiter around or face their jobs. It's very sad that among those who clamor for salary increase are found those without job schedules, making government look like Father Christmas. The time has come to know that this lazy work culture will not take the country anywhere. Let those who are not ready to work give the eager ones space to work for the growth of this country. Enough is enough.
Okay, there you go. Thank you all. Always a pleasure to hear from you. We'll be back next week. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Thank you. Have yourself a beautiful weekend. I'm Maukwe Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Do have a beautiful one ahead.